Just getting underway. Live coverage here on C-SPAN.
Never so fortunate as to have been stationed in our speaker's country. Now a freelance writer, editor, and vice chairman of the club's Newsmaker Committee. Before introducing the afternoon speaker, let me dispense with the obligatory announcements. There will be a sound file or a recording of this Newsmaker made, and it'll be available to members only on the club website at press.org, and others can purchase a copy of the tape from the library, or if the Federal News Service is covering this, and I suspect they are, they'll sell you a transcript. Please turn off any of the usual little things that make noises, like cell phones and so forth. There's a list of other speakers coming up on outside. We hope you'd like to come to some of those. And in addition, there's some material related to this afternoon's Newsmaker. And that Newsmaker, as you know, is the Ambassador of Israel to the United States, the Honorable Daniel Ayalon. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to the National Press Club. Baruch haba. Very glad to have you here. I've been after Ambassador Ayalon to speak for quite a while now, and persistence finally paid off. And I also want to welcome back to the Press Club two people who suggested and helped arrange this afternoon's Newsmaker with the Ambassador, Mr. David Siegel, the press counselor of the Israeli Embassy, who is here somewhere. There he is. And somebody I've talked to but haven't met, Mr. Ari Morgenstern. There he is. Now I know what you look like. Well, thank you very much. Toda. Copies of Ambassador Ayalon's CV are available, so I won't take up time going into the details of his background, but let me just mention some of the higher highlights. He served the last three consecutive Israeli administrations, most recently as Chief Foreign Policy Advisor to Prime Minister Ariel Sharon. He was Deputy Foreign Policy Advisor to former Prime Ministers Ehud Barak and Benjamin Netanyahu, all of whom, by the way, have been here as newsmakers, we're happy to say. And the Ambassador Ayalon, was a member of the Israeli delegations to the Sharm el-Sheikh, and the Y Plantation, and the Camp David summits. And he was the director of the Bureau of Israel's ambassador to the UN and the deputy chief of mission in the Israeli embassy in Panama. Well, D-Day in this country, of course, generally refers to the Allied invasion of Normandy in World War II, and the D is just an alliterative device. But in a newsmaker's country, the D stands for disengagement, or withdrawal, if you wish, from the Gaza Strip. And 6 days from now, on August 17, Israel will take what has been called, and correctly I think, the, quote, historic step, unquote, of ending, in the words of Time magazine, its embattled 38-year occupation of that area. And to say that emotions, Israeli and other, are high about it would be the height of understatement. Well, but Ambassador Ayalon is here to say some more about it, and after he does, he will take your questions, and please let him know your name and affiliation when you ask them. And when you do have a question, if you'll line up at the two mics here, I won't be calling on you, and I'll go left to right, and identify yourself by name and affiliation. And finally, if you haven't already done so, as you leave, please add your name to the sign-in sheet outside. Thank you very much. Toda. Mr. Ambassador.
Shalom and good afternoon, and thank you very much, Mr. Peter Hickman, for the hospitality, and for the National Press Club for hosting us here today. Welcome all of you, and thank you all for coming on an eve of a very crucial moment for Israel, for the Palestinians, and for the entire Middle East. In 3 days from now, history will be made in the Middle East. The beginning of the disengagement plan of Israel's departure from Gaza and some parts of the West Bank. This is a very dramatic experience for Israel. This is a very tough experience for Israel, and very difficult and complex. Nevertheless, it is a necessary step that we have taken. It's a step which is exacting really painful things from Israel, including exacting big sacrifice for the Israeli society. But we hope that this experience, that this move, will be a major contribution for peace between us and the Palestinians, and will change the landscape and realities in the Middle East. As I mentioned, 3 days from today, 85,000 Israelis will be uprooted. 21 communities, Israeli communities, will be uprooted. People who have lived there for more than 35 years, in some cases 3 generations. They will leave behind everything. their homes, their farms. Many of them are farmers, among the best farmers in Israel, with really state-of-the-art farming in hydroponic, organic developments and plantations, dairy farming. All this will be left behind, houses and lifetime investments and memories. All they will take with them is their personal belonging, and they will take their synagogues and also cemeteries, which cannot be left behind. Many of them will be just losing their way of lives. For farming, it's very difficult to start anew, certainly at some of them who are approaching middle ages. It was a very tough decision that Israel took, and it was a very courageous decision to, if I can quote President Bush and Secretary Condoleezza Rice, a very courageous and historic decision that was taken by Prime Minister Sharon. It is important to note here and emphasize that this was a decision that nobody forced on Israel. Nobody pushed us to do it. The Prime Minister has taken this decision, which was taken in a democratic way, approved by the Cabinet, endorsed by the Knesset, was an independent and a sovereign decision, which was taken after realization that this is the way to strengthen Israel's security, to strengthen its economic viability, and to secure its future. At the same time, this is giving a peace a real chance, probably the best chance peace had in the Middle East for generations, certainly the highest in the last 50 years or so. This is a chance to move forward with the roadmap to peace in order to fulfill the vision of President Bush for the Middle East. It also gives a chance for a much better future for the Palestinians. And we wish well for the Palestinians. Our well-being is our interest. So we create here an opportunity, we create here a situation of a win-win situation, and I hope that it will be taken at the same way, same approach, the same attitude and intentions by the Palestinians. As we leave Gaza and some parts of the West Bank, we are not living behind scorched earth. On the contrary, we are leaving all the infrastructures intact. We are coordinating it with the Palestinians. We are leaving behind maps, and we are leaving behind means for them to take over and immediately better their situation. Today, I'm also happy to announce or to note that an agreement was reached about the greenhouses in Gaza. We're talking about 4,000 dunams, or about over 2,000 acres of greenhouses, which employ right now 4,000 Palestinians. It has a potential to employ 10,000 Palestinians. Now, with large families in Gaza, 10,000 Palestinian jobs means give sustenance to over 100,000, or 10% of the Palestinian population in Gaza can benefit from that. We are intending to leave it as a turnkey project for them, and this could not have been actually achieved without the great involvement and contribution of Mr. Jimmy Wolfensohn, the former president of the World Bank, who is the economic envoy of the United States government in the region, and we very much want to congratulate him and thanking him for arriving just last night at this arrangement, which allows us to leave the greenhouses intact for the Palestinians. We share the vision of this administration of an open Gaza, prosperous Gaza. As I mentioned, it's an Israeli interest, it's Palestinian interest, and it's a win-win situation. As we complete the departure from Gaza, this will represent the end of our presence there, the end of the military occupation of Gaza. Israel will no longer be responsible of what's going on in Gaza, which doesn't mean that we will be indifferent or we will not care. On the contrary, We will continue to supply the most necessary needs, like electricity, water. We supply on an annual basis 5 billion cubic meters, which is like 1.3 billion gallons a year. This will continue, and we hope to also participate in the economic development of Gaza, which we also help in making contributions. For that also, I want to applaud the contribution of the G8 countries. It was after the presentation that Jimmy Wolfensohn made to them. He has secured pledges, as you may all know here, of $3 billion a year for the next 3 years, $9 billion, which could really turn Gaza into a real attractive place if they use it well and if they take this opportunity. And we would look now and expect the Palestinians to really rise up to this challenge, to seize this opportunity and to really make good on their obligations, to make sure that Gaza will not turn a safe haven for terrorists or a stockpile of munitions and explosives and a safe haven for suicide bombers. We expect them to fight terror, to eradicate and abolish the infrastructure of terror, to change this culture of hate, incitement, change the education system, and to work on the positive. And they certainly have all the means that we have left behind, that money that will come from that Jimmy Wolfensohn secured, and our allowance and our intention to keep Gaza open with a free flow of goods and people, freedom of movement, and great economic opportunities. This is their call, and everything will be dependent upon the Palestinian Authority. And what we expect from them is to really put the authority in the Palestinian Authority, take responsibility, take the authority, make the changes which are necessary. As I mentioned, first and foremost is to stop the terror, but also they have a great opportunity now for economic revolution, to create many, many places of work and jobs, to build housing, to change the situation there completely, where the refugee camps can be completely abolished and turned into good housing for them, to really rehabilitate the refugees there, and also to start and go on with sweeping reforms, security reforms, economic reforms, political reforms, which will create what we all expect, what is not just an Israeli expectation or an international community demands, but what is also prescribed in the roadmap to peace, to create an entity with one authority, rule of law, and one gun. If this is the case, we can make progress and move on and start